I'll do the thing.
The voice.
All right.
This is Steve Downs.
Here, wait. Let me give you a little thing so you can put the VOD on nicely. Here we go. Intro playing.
This is Steve Downs, the voice of Master Chief, Spartan 117. Welcome to Quality Time, the KO Koala Entertainment Podcast. Anthony and Skylar will take it from here. Master Chief, out.
Hello and welcome to Koalatea Time, the KO Koala Entertainment Podcast. I'm Skylar Sokol.
I'm Anthony Nicolosi.
And today we are hearkening back to an old friend who we haven't talked about in a little while.
Hark, hark, hark!
To our boy, Jesse Shell, and Game Design, A Book of Lenses. We have an app with a deck of lenses, and sometimes I just press the random button, and what comes up is inspirational topic for the podcast. And today is that. Anthony, you want to tell us about what we're going to be talking about today?
Today we're going to be talking about lens number 47, aka the lens of punishment.
The lens of punishment.
Fuck, I spit on my new monitor.
Yeah, stop. Can you chill out?
Super good monitor.
Can you chill out?
Here, you want me to slap you with a definition here?
Yeah, I would like that. In view of the lens of punishment, please slap me with the definition.
I will stab you with the following.
Okay.
Punishment, says Jesse, must be used delicately, since after all, players are in a game of their own free will. This lens comes within the context of Jesse calling out the 12 most common types of game balance, like metrics or knobs, if you will. Punishment is one of them. The idea of a game that punishes the player can seem a little strange. Aren't games supposed to be fun? Paradoxically, though, punishment used properly can increase the enjoyment the players get from the game. Here are some reasons a game might punish players. Punishment creates endogenous value. That means it creates value within the game itself. Resources in a game are worth more if there's a chance they can be taken away.
Is endogenous value like intrinsic value?
Internal value is like technically what it means, the definition says. So it's punishment makes something else valuable in the game.
So it's like the whole concept in life of like you can't feel good things if you don't experience bad things.
And a bit, resources in a game are worth more if there's a chance they can be taken away.
Sure.
Taking risks is exciting, is the next thing he says. Giving players a chance to risk terrible consequences makes success much sweeter. It also plays into triangularity, something we talk about a lot. This notion that if you give me an option that maybe is more risky to do, but has a bigger payoff, punishment plays a big role in that design, and can be something that adds a little bit of spice, makes things exciting. There's a fucking bug right in front of me.
Spice.
Possible punishment increases challenge. Increasing the punishment that comes with failure can be one way to increase challenges. These are few reasons why Jesse says punishment might be an important tool in the game balance sandbox. He gives some examples of punishment used in games. Shaming is an example. So this can happen with messages like "you missed" or "defeated." This is a form of punishment. Loss of points, pretty straightforward. It's less an issue. Losing points is less an issue of being painful, more the fact that when players lose points, it cheapens the value. When they can't lose points, it cheapens the value of the earned points. Again, getting back to what he said before. Yeah. Another form of punishment is shortened play, losing a life, for example. Terminated play, game over, man.
Game over, man.
Setback, kind of like reverting to a previous checkpoint. The balancing challenge is to figure out exactly where checkpoints belong, etc. But that's another form of punishment. Removal of powers. Some games do that. You lose powers on death. Depletion of resources. Now, one thing Jesse does call out to finish out the intro is that psychological studies show that rewards are always a better tool of reinforcement than punishment.
Yeah.
So that, for what it's worth, he gives the example in Diablo you need to gather food in the game. Apparently, he's saying in Blizzard's Diablo, the business of gathering food in the game is one. Many game designers at one time or another get the idea that they like to make a game with a realistic system of food gathering. That is, if you do not gather food, your character suffers. That's like in Minecraft Survival 2. Blizzard implemented this and apparently found that players considered it a nuisance that they had to perform a fairly boring activity or suffer a penalty. So Blizzard turned it around and implemented a system where your player never gets hungry, apparently. So, yeah.
Your monitor's so bright you can't even read the text you're reading. I see you wiping your eyes. God, your monitor.
My contacts is falling out of my damn
your
face.
Monitor's so bright. It's
I got this brand new Asus Tough Gaming. Technically, I think it's 2K 165 hertz monitor. And it's the most glorious thing I've ever looked at. And I have the brightness full blast, and it's apparently
killing your eyes. Yeah. So punishment is really interesting in games, right? We see so many different varieties of it in modern games. From like the obvious answer in my mind is like Dark Souls, right? One of the most quote, punishing games in existence. When you die, you go back to the checkpoint, the bonfire, all the enemies respawn, everything happens. And I think punishment in the lens of Dark Souls is really interesting because I see people play like Sean, someone who's obsessed with Dark Souls, right? And he told me about how like everyone just refers to like the run back, which is what happens when you die and you have to run back to where you were, like the boss or whatever. And you end up just running by a lot of the enemies. You only fight the ones you have to. So that like begs the question, is that a good punishment design? People love it, but is it kind of stupid? I kind of think so. Like that sounds like bad punishment design to me, but
I mean, does it sound? I think the question comes down to channeling my inner Celia Hoden. What your game demographic likes. She actually used Dark Souls as an example because she was saying Dark Souls like is hard, and she said a lot of people don't like that, and the elements about that. But she said the design is actually very good for the player demographic that Dark Souls is targeting. So, in the end, I think it kind of boils down to just like what your players expect. Now, there was recently, I'm trying to think, this game that came out that brought out the conversation around checkpoints. And specifically, it was like the absence of checkpoints in this game recently. I don't know if it was Cuphead. Cuphead doesn't have, it only had like one checkpoint in some levels.
It has checkpoints in the like platforming levels, and then the bosses obviously don't have checkpoints.
Yeah, maybe the ones in the end have more, but I know in the platforming levels I did up through like Airplane Lady boss, there usually was only like one checkpoint in the middle. So anyway, comparing that to like when I played Ori, which you had like you could save pretty frequently.
Definitely different design philosophies between those two games.
And like, is one better than the other?
I think it depends on the target demographic, right? Similar to what you just said about Celia.
I feel maybe one way if you wanted to, because otherwise I think we just like finish this conversation here. Just depends on the target demographic and it's over. But what about this in regards to like respecting players' time, right?
Yeah, so I think that's really interesting, and that's why I bring up the Dark Souls one, because like clearly it's not respecting players' time because they want to run by the enemies. If they felt like it was like valuable time spent, they would be fighting the enemies again, right? It's not interesting to run. Maybe people do find it interesting to run by the enemies, and maybe this whole running by them thing is fun and valuable, but I don't really see that being the case. I don't know. Can you think of any other games where like you really didn't like the punishments, or the punishments took away from the game for you?
Well, I'll tell you, I don't have a PS5, but recently watching Returnal, right?
Sure,
and
of course.
That was one where I was like, if I had a PS5, I want to play this. And then I heard about how punishing the deaths were, right? It was the deaths, I think. And there wasn't like any kind of like checkpoint system.
This is roguelikes, right? And roguelikes as a genre have this quote unquote issue, but I don't know. I really like that kind of like, there is definitely something to say, like what Jesse said about this like weight that gets put on you when you know the punishment is a lot. right? The weight of
Right.
knowing that when you die, you're permanently dead. Like Minecraft hardcore mode even is an example of this. Players intentionally picking a harder punishment in order to create more weight on their actions, right? Like mining down matters a lot less in a Minecraft non-hardcore save than in a hardcore save.
Yep.
And that's fun
Yeah.
for some people, right? And the moments you create when you die in those hardcore things are way, way more like meaningful, I guess, and entertaining. Yep. Maybe not fun for the player, but definitely fun if they're like a streamer or whatever.
Yeah, I think it gets back to contributing towards triangularity, right? Like if punishment can help spice up the decisions I have to make, then I generally find it I guess getting to how I personally feel. Games that are too punishing, honestly, I felt like Cuphead, for me at least, was too punishing. I didn't want to keep grinding those levels. It was frustrating. It was just more frustrating than adding like any significant amount of exciting weight, if you will, to the experience.
I agree with you on the platforming levels. I also didn't feel like they were that effective. On the bosses, I felt like wanting to beat the boss in one sitting was fine for me at least, and I was still motivated. But definitely with the platforming levels, I felt the same way.
Yep. Another important element of balancing punishment, in my opinion, is thinking of the level of punishment in relation to where the player is on the mastery path, right? So in Theory of Fun, Raph Koster gives this good example of, say you're learning how to play tennis. The first thing you do is somebody gives you the ball and they're just like, connect with the ball. That's your first challenge. Second one, let's try and hit it over the net, right? Now, if you were to step from hitting it over the net to playing somebody with 10 years, and that was the step you made, that level of challenge is so difficult that it's not satisfying, it's not challenging, it's just broken, So that kind of punishment, again, I am sure there are some people out there that enjoy that level of punishment, that level of challenge. They maybe just see it as a big challenge and they enjoy trying to overcome that. But I think that's a key. Some of the best games, I'm thinking also Rocket League right now. Rocket League's got insane depth to it, into its mechanics. You can do so much. And as you progress up the levels, players get so good at such a wide variety of things. And then there's the strategy with the teams, blah, blah, blah. But you're not put against, barring Smurfs, you're not put against a grand champ Rocket League player when you're just starting out playing. You're put up against somebody else who's kind of equally as new, equally as skilled. This is also...
Wait, finish your point, because I have no idea how this relates to punishment at all.
Because this is all relating to some of the best games manage this challenge of making sure the punishment is never too great to discourage you from wanting to keep playing.
Right.
They do it just right to progress.
And do it just right for the people they're looking for, I guess, to play the game, right? I think people who love Dark Souls would say it does it just right, but I was saying earlier, I don't think so.
Yeah, I said, I think some people out there, the legendary all skulls on Halo kids,
right,
who have no HUD, only can melee or whatever the fuck, and they're on legendary, yeah, this is awesome. There are people out there, but yeah, I just don't think the general demographic is pretty safe to say likes a well-balanced punishment system.
Yeah. And so what's interesting is, right, originally in games, when games first started coming around, the Atari games and whatever, they were basically point-based games where the more points you got, the better you were doing. And when you died, the game ended and you started over and you had to get back to your point value. And I think that core design was the spawning of punishments in games, dying and starting over being what a punishment looks like in a game. Mario obviously does that same thing, but then came checkpoints in Mario and stuff like that to alleviate the punishments. And now we have Mario Odyssey and games like that where the punishment, there's essentially no punishment for dying. Literally in Mario Odyssey, when you die, you lose 100 coins or some bullshit that literally doesn't matter at all, and you could grind back in 5 minutes. and then you like start back at a random checkpoint in the level, but you can warp anywhere in the level. Like Mario Odyssey essentially removed punishment from the game, and it's great. It's like one of the best games I've ever played. So like I think it's such a good example of rewards being so strong that punishments are unnecessary, right? Like it's still like you have to start over, but the starting over is so limited and it just doesn't matter because there's so much content. And I think maybe that's a big part of this, is that the quantity of content in order to not need, like, to have less intense punishments matters, right? I think a lot of games artificially extend their length by having greater punishments.
I agree.
Right?
Yep. Yeah, I think this also, getting to the endogenous value thing that Jesse called out earlier, if you think about like even some of the earliest games, even if it was just like Pong and it's like, I don't know, what is it, Pac-Man? Like you're trying to Pac-Man, right? When you die, you like lose points or something, right? You
I mean, the game ends.
Yeah, the game eventually ends. It's a terminated one.
They're like permadeath. Like all these arcade games are essentially permadeath games, right? Once you're dead, you're dead.
I mean, but imagine if you didn't die. It's like you are the sole motivator for playing Pac-Man would be the intrinsic value you have for. I'm sorry, the intrinsic motivation you have around like playing the game, like how much you enjoy executing Pac-Man. And I think related to what you're saying, not only just the breadth, the amount, the volume of content has increased, but the depth of content has also increased, which enables games to be more satisfying, right? Like they are more intrinsically interesting. Super Mario Odyssey has more mechanical depth than the Super Marios of 20 years ago.
Well, and just the content, right? There's like so many moons to get in the game that there's just so much to be doing that you don't even really have time to be like being punished for not succeeding because there's just so much to do.
Well, and not only that, but another thing that Celia does call out in her book Gamer's Brain that this is making me think is there are studies surrounding like if there's a person who intrinsically loves doing something and then is fed extrinsic rewards and they start pursuing those extrinsic rewards, if you take those extrinsic rewards away, their intrinsic interest in the thing almost always goes down.
Right. So you can kill someone's intrinsic interest in something by showing them external rewards and then getting rid of them, right?
Extrinsic rewards.
That's
exactly
crazy.
Yeah, and it actually is very consistent. And I made this comment regarding the Halo Master Chief Collection Battle Pass system, because the way the battle, and Halo's not unique in this regard, but something I noticed about the MCC was I would play MCC like 5 or 7 games of it a week all the time, no matter what, just because I love playing the fucking 20-year-old Halo games, you know? They introduced these challenges that would rotate out, some of them at most, I think, weekly, and you got credits in game that allowed you to get armors. I started pursuing that because some of the armors that came out were cool. And then I noticed that I am overall playing Master Chief Collection a lot less, because when I think about going to go play it, I think about I need to get the challenges done.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I'm like, I don't want to do challenges. And so I'm like, I'm just not going to play, you know?
Yeah. Well, and that's interesting because Infinite recently said that their progression system was going to be wholly challenge based as well, at least currently.
Yeah.
So you might run into the same thing again.
I think
and
realistically,
I will tell you, it's really interesting. Just sorry, not to interrupt, but oh God, what game is it? Valorant originally had a solely challenge-based battle pass system. It was always challenge-based. The amount of XP you got for like not doing challenges just for playing a match was essentially like negligible, like nothing, 0. Like it was like 100. And the challenges were like 15,000. And in the last season or the previous season, they re-added an XP system to the game independent of the battle pass because so many people were begging for some sort of progression that they could get just by playing.
Right.
And it's been very popular. Rocket League as well has always had their XP progression system that exists in addition to the battle pass. And I think people love that because I think it helps you and maybe it's because we're so spoiled by extrinsic rewards that even just by playing the game and not doing anything special, we want to feel like we're being rewarded.
Yeah. I mean, Personally, I feel it's more tied to trying to, monetize the experience personally, but because it's a free to play title. But yeah, I agree with you. There's also an
Well, you don't
element of
pay
that.
anything for the player progression in Valorant. That's the difference between it and the battle pass. You get rewards and
No.
XP
Sorry, I'm saying I think the reason why they're going to this
to the
exclusive challenge based, yeah.
Yes, agreed. And I think it definitely disrespects the player a bit.
Yeah, I think in this particular scenario, I will have enough intrinsic interest because it's a new Halo game for a long time. But in the event that, like, after 1,000 hours of play, something's not in there, I think, yeah, for sure, it's going to probably contribute in a similar way for me, at least.
Well, and I saw the community reaction was similar to that, and actually Microsoft came out and said, or whoever the developer came out 343 said that they were going to look into an alternate form of progression, possibly to add on top of it because of the negative
kind of
response.
Bonkers, man. This is like a little bit of a tangent off of punishment, but yeah, it's kind of crazy that you wouldn't have these XP progression systems.
So many of these games aren't doing it and then are adding it later. Like
like a point goes up.
Yeah,
okay?
like why not? Give me a player level that goes up when I play. How hard is that? I mean, maybe because they feel pressured to like add like some sort of cosmetic reward or something, and they want to spend their time developing those for the challenge-based system or whatever. But yeah, I don't even care. I feel like just having a number that goes up is enough for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think, and maybe it is this. It's like because this is the only way your number goes up. We get you in the system, and then if you're in the system, more likely chance. There's probably data that shows they'll buy more.
Sure. What I would say is like if make a system where if your number, I mean, this is related to punishment in that it's talking about how to make good rewards, right? Which offset punishments, and in that like why not make it so when you gain levels you get like a little bit of battle pass credit, right? Like why not? Is it really that bad? Like.
Yeah, or something.
Like, even if you have to pay for the battle pass anyway, so why not just, like, let you get some XP through your player level or something? It's just, like, I don't know. I feel like battle pass systems in general have really, like, put us backwards as far as, like, respecting the player. Even though battle passes are great in a lot of ways, I feel like they do, like, they're moving more and more towards not respecting people's time.
Yeah, unfortunately, it seems like most free-to-play games, and this getting to punishment, most free-to-play monetization models are more about like inconveniencing you into spending money.
It's what Helia said. Or go ahead.
No, go ahead.
It's what Celia said about like ethical making players spend time ethically and like not like because all battle passes are essentially time exclusive rewards, right? And that shit is horrible.
Yep.
Like
yeah, I mean, and if like, for example, Halo Infinites are not like the battle pass never goes away itself, but because the challenges are time based, there's still an element there. It just gets back to this like psychological notion of it. The battle pass and missing out on the battle pass makes me feel more like I finish games even in the Halo Infinite flight, and I'm like, oh shit, am I tracking the right challenge? Oh fuck, I just like wasted an opportunity to get more points. I feel punished because I did not engage in the battle pass system. I don't feel rewarded and whatever. You know what I mean?
And I'll tell you, a lot of the best games that I've played that have challenge-based reward systems are ones where they display the challenges on screen while you're playing. So that that have UX elements that inform you of the challenge you need to complete while you're playing. So you're not just like wasting your time trying to remember all this shit, right? Like if challenges are going to be the pinnacle of your progression, then you should be able to see them at any time, right? There should be a tracker on your screen.
And in the event that you need to choose which ones you want to track, you should be able to track them anywhere too.
Yep. Yeah, and some fighting games have done things like this, especially.
Yeah, just again, it's like a reward system that it's punishing me.
Right. It's punishing you for wanting to just play the game, which does not feel like a good thing. Yeah, it really is.
My reward system is hurting me.
Right.
I'm not very rewarding.
Yeah, and I think in the past we always had challenge systems being completely optional and just like an additional element of triangularity. And now like playing with the challenges is like turning into the intended way to play the game, which feels like not a great departure for design.
I like Rocket League system the most so far of like you have an XP system, you have a free battle pass tier, you have a paid battle pass tier. And then the challenges never seem that big of a deal. It's like
the most annoying ones are like you have to equip this cosmetic, but even that isn't that big a deal, right?
Right, yeah, those are kind of cheese for sure. And like I've seen the community want harder ones, but I kind of appreciate they're not that hard,
No, I
honestly.
agree. You basically just play and you get them, and you don't really have to care. Like maybe you have to
Yeah, I
play a
don't even
specific
realize.
mode, but that like it's not a big deal. Unlike some challenge systems where it's like you have to be
Right.
focusing on the challenge rather than on the game.
Playing in a mode I'm like pretty okay with. In Master Chief Collection, sometimes you can only play certain halos like Reach and
Mm-hmm.
2. And like that one, those are kind of like
It's
I
okay, but
definitely well, because I don't want to. This is, I think, another reason why I don't want to particularly participate in that system is because if I play MCC, and I'm sure this is a strategy in order to get people to play more of than just like their go to Halo.
yeah.
But I'm going in there and I'm like, I want to play 1, 2, or 3. Don't want to play really 4, and I don't want to play Reach. And so I queue up for always 1 and 2, and then sometimes 3. And then the challenges are like complete all these things in Reach and Halo 1. And I'm like, fuck, with like I feel like before I had an hour to play, I would play the games I wanted to play. And now I feel like there's a psychological pull to play what I don't want to play
What you
because I
have
need
to
the
play.
points.
Yeah.
I have to play these because these give me the challenge. I hate that
That
shit.
is not
Like,
ethical UX design. Like I really don't think so. It doesn't respect the player what the player wants. Like
yeah, it's
your design should be giving the player as much of what they want as possible, and that's not what these are doing. So now getting back more to punishment, I'm just curious since I know you've played some newer games recently outside of your normal stuff. What was Song of Iron's punishment system like? How did that feel?
So Song of Iron's punishment, thankfully, was very manageable. I never got into a situation where what it was like you had checkpoints. You would have
Okay.
checkpoints throughout
So
the
classic
game.
like checkpoint sort of level
Yeah.
system. And were they like really often? Like you basically felt like once you
They were
completed a
really
challenging
often.
encounter you had one, or no, it wasn't like that.
I felt like whenever Song of Iron kind of goes through these sequences of like map traversal, some puzzling elements, some light combat, and then usually some heavy combat, some like sort of boss sequences. And like usually after a hard puzzle part and there's even a clip of me saying this, after a hard puzzle part or after a boss fight, felt like I needed a checkpoint and it would be there. So
Nice.
Song of Iron at least was able to balance that out. And at the end, which is fucking crazy, it also was done well. Like, because you can die at the end, and I remember dying the end is mind bending, and you're like in the end, and you die, and I was afraid it was gonna like really revert me back, and it didn't. It like put me somewhere else. So, in Song of Iron was done well. In Deathloop,
yeah, that's what the other one I was gonna ask about. You didn't really play much, so I don't know if you have a good.
Yeah, and so in Deathloop, what would happen is you had, I think it was loops. Like they're kind of effectively lives where you start a level and you play through and you do have like checkpoints along the way in the level. But if you lose every time you die, you lose a loop and you start at your checkpoint. If you lose all your loops, you start at the beginning of the level.
Okay, so it's pretty much just a life system.
It seemed pretty fair for what it's worth. I did churn on the game after losing all my loops in one section.
Okay.
So maybe there's, I am pretty sensitive towards like for a game to really capture my attention, it's got to like compete with, it's either got to be so digestible that I can finish it quickly, and like 3 to 4 hours and like call it good, or it needs to be intrinsically interesting enough that I don't feel like just playing Halo or Rocket League or something.
Yeah, my question is like, how do you personally deal with Minecraft's punishments? Because I feel like Minecraft, although like you just start back, it can be very punishing. Like you can have wasted like hours, right?
We once were playing really like more hardcore in Old Realm, Brittany and I, and we were just way sweatier about it then. And when we died, we like, it was a big deal, but we died much less often because we played really sweaty.
Okay.
Now in the realm, like I won't lie, I back shit up and I reset my backups.
Okay.
Like if shit gets real bad, I just reset my backups.
So you are essentially alleviating the punishment system.
Correct.
With an exploit.
I personally have no intrinsic desire to play hardcore. Like it would maybe be funny, but I'm not like I would love to go up to the challenge of hard. I don't play Legendary Halo. I don't play like with the amount of time I have for video games and the kind of place they have in my life. I'm looking more for an enjoyment, rewarding system, rewarding experience, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I'm not looking from like going to working all the time to like fucking something even more stressful than work.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, not for me. Not for me.
And I'll tell you, so rhythm games are another game that have interesting punishing systems. Like DDR and most classic rhythm games, when you do bad, you lose. Like you get kicked out of the song. If you're at the arcade in DDR and you lose your entire credit, right? Like if you lose on the first song, you don't get to play
punishing
anymore.
On the arcades, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so I've gravitated much more towards games where that's not the case. Like My, for example, you can't fail in songs. Like you can fail, but you don't get kicked out. You get to play the whole song and you get to play your whole credit no matter what, all 3 songs. And it's just so much better. I agree. I don't have time to waste on like being kicked out of something I want to get better at. Just like let me play the fucking game.
No, that's an interesting one. I played the shit out of DDR Revolution in PS2 era, and it's true, it's punishing, but I just had so much fun dancing that I didn't give a fuck.
Right. Well, and I think there's a different mindset there, right? And I think this relates to Sea of Thieves as well in my mind. Like, if you're playing Sea of Thieves to care about getting the loot and nothing else, and the only thing that matters to you is returning loot, you're gonna hate how punishing Sea of Thieves is. But if you're just there to like have fun, right? That game is so punishing if your goal is to just get loot.
Brittany doesn't play Sea of Thieves anymore, mostly outside of like if we're all together playing as friends with because it's so punishing. She's like, I just go in, I get shit done, and then they fucking kill me.
Right.
You know, somebody comes and kills me and takes my stuff and whatever.
I think thankfully the sandbox and like the just playing with people is so rewarding that it's okay. But if it wasn't that rewarding, that I would hate that game. I would be like, this is a waste of my time.
Well, when I started streaming it, I want to say like 4 or 5 months ago again, there was a day I was literally so addicted to it from having so much fun that I finished streaming. I kept playing. And that I played, like, I did a quest and then I went for another one. I got so much shit. I did whatever the fuck. And then I got galleoned. And in such a douchebag way, they like helped me first. And then they blew the shit out of me. They took all my stuff. That I uninstalled Sea of Thieves and I made hard drive space for some other game I don't remember at the time. So like, just for me at least, that level of punishment. What do you think about the punishment of deranking?
So I think it's a harsh reality of ranked competitive play, right? Like, there's definitely a weird balance because I think that anyone who is playing a competitive video game expects to consistently get better and they want their rank to reflect that. So a lot of systems have implemented ways to make them feel less punishing. Like, for example, the Grace game in Rocket League, which I don't know if people are familiar with Rocket League's rank system, but if you get below the MMR required to be at a rank, you get to lose one more game before you get ranked down. Whereas if you get above the rank required to get to a rank, you go there immediately. So you actually get an extra game at the rank when you go down. And that's literally to address this exact problem, which is that when people don't feel like they're maintaining or getting better in a ranked system, they tend to get angry, even if it's accurate.
Right.
And like, you have to be very serious about your mastery path and improving at a game in order to accept just a completely standard MMR system. Like chess, for example, uses the most standard, like MMR was invented for chess, essentially. And chess, like chess.com, the normal chess apps, they use the normal MMR system where you just gain or lose based on what the MMR difference is, and that's it. There's no bells or whistles. And for people who love chess, it's fine, and they want that. They want the most accurate representation of their skill. But for people in like Rocket League who are like, oh, I'm always getting better, I'm better than all my teammates, and maybe for any team-based competitive multiplayer game where you can make the excuse that you're better than everyone else, having just D-ranking can like really affect people's mindset about playing the game.
Yep.
And maybe it is because of teams. I think that the fact that it's team-based plays a big role because I think fighting game players are way more open to D-ranking than other players as long as it feels like the system is accurate.
Because it feels like somehow, I don't know, a lot of times, especially fucking Rocket League, I
Right.
feel like, damn, my fucking teammates, they're
Right.
fucking me,
Right.
It's like the punishment is unfair because they suck.
When
not
in
me.
reality, it's probably not. In reality,
It's
it's
a mixed
probably
bag.
not that. Right.
And in Rocket League, it's it can be. I think the other element that makes it a little frustrating in Rocket League, at least like in my opinion, compared to, for example, my experience in Halo, grinding competitive Halo, like if the other Halo team is better than you, by the time it's like 30-12 in a Slayer game. You know what I mean? In Rocket League, it's fucking 1-0.
Or
like
even like 1-1 overtime. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're always, it's very rare that you just get super shit on.
No.
Most of the time it's even games. And so you're like, have hope the whole time,
Right.
which just makes it more crushing
Yes.
when you fail.
Now, answer me this. This is something that just came to my mind.
Riddle me this, Batman.
Because I think a huge problem with Rocket League that's always been a problem that they've never addressed, well, they've sort of tried, but it didn't work, is their metric tracking is really bad in games, right?
Yeah.
Like, your score means essentially nothing, and everyone understands that your score means essentially nothing. Yeah. What if Rocket League's metric tracking was good enough that at the end of a game, you could see metrics that helped you to realize what you did wrong in the game? Maybe the D-ranking wouldn't feel so punishing. And I feel like FPSs do this a lot better. You can see a lot more of like your performance in FPS metrics than you can in a game like Rocket League.
Right. No, it's true. In Halo, you can see like, yeah, okay, I 5 kills and 12 deaths, but I have 10 assists and the amount of damage I dealt was this much. You actually, Infinite shows you like your accuracy on headshots specifically. Right. How much the new one, another new one I really like in Infinite is the damage you received. So like if you have 12 deaths, but you receive 3 times the damage of the other guys, you were putting yourselves in places to like help the team maybe or something like that and still relatively successfully staying alive. You know what I mean? So I agree with you that in the event that you had that, if nothing else, I think it would make the punishment feel not as bad.
Right. Like what if it told you like how many times you double committed with someone or whatever, right?
Right.
Like and it could detect that it was your fault, like you shouldn't have gone for that ball.
Like, look, motherfucker, you double committed 100 times. You own gold 2 times, whatever the fuck. Like, this is on you. You fucked up.
Right.
And ideally also the algorithm can incorporate that. I know for Halo, there's a whole white paper by Josh Menke on how they're doing that. Like they can get. They said that for Halo 5, they could extremely accurately, I don't remember, 90+% accuracy, get to a person's true rank in one game.
Right.
By the end of Halo 5, right?
Which is
this is also how they could tell Smurfs. Like they're like, you're not supposed to be here,
Yep. Now the question with that though, right, is like you have to account for like someone being having an off game or whatever, but obviously they do, right? They're never gonna like decide your rank off one game. They'll give you a grace period, but that a system like that is really powerful. And I think the future of like non-punishing ranked systems are systems that are player performance based, but in an accurate way, and are very transparent to those metrics. I think those are the 2 factors that make players feel like respected when they're playing a ranked game.
Yep, I agree. Yep, I agree. I was going to say something, but I lost the track of it.
I think that's a great place to end, and we move on to a patron question.
What are they going to ask us this week?
So we have that old question we never answered from Marcus, I think, the second part of his question. But I can't find it. And we also have an Animus question that I found. So if you want to look for... Oh, actually, the Animus question was before it. And I don't think we ever answered it. Oh, but Animus stopped being a patron. That's why. Because he was never a patron. We'll save that one. I'm going to pin it.
When he returns.
I'm going to pin it in the channel so that when he returns, we will answer his question.
Marcus was I see
this
question.
I found it, yeah. So it was I believe his second question we never answered, which is, if Agora blows up and you can work on KO Koala full time, What part of the business are you most excited to focus more on since game making is freed from your schedules? Like the content creation with streams and higher quality videos, podcasts, and projects, or adding more onto Agora through updates or DLCs, or even a sequel or some other things you guys have planned. So we have previously mentioned that we have plans to work on an Agora sequel, essentially immediately after Agora, assuming it does well. Otherwise, we might consider doing something like relating to the first game to try and get more money or whatever. But I would say, assuming Agora does well, I think that for me, I'm most excited to just be able to work on a new game full time. Like I've never, and none of us have ever experienced what it's like to work on video games full time. To be able to not feel like even like a tinge of guilt that we're working on not our like full time jobs or whatever, right? Like.
Right.
That like experience is the thing I'm by far the most excited for, and specifically focusing on game design because that's always been my passion. Like the design of the game, what the mechanics are going to look like, and what the levels are going to look like. I already have so many ideas for how like Agora 2 can look and feel, from really simple things to like complex mechanics. Anthony and I have been discussing since the beginning of, since the design phase of the first game, that we're like, that's for Agora 2.
Yeah.
What about you?
I don't know, man.
It's hard to even imagine the world where we're doing this full time, right? It's hard to even picture
most
that.
Excited about, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it before. The way I don't like the way that Koala evolves is, I think, a pretty unique in regards to normal indie studios. This is not just like we made this cool little game and then we disappear, and then 3 years later it's another game.
Right.
Content creation and building a relationship with our community is always a first class citizen priority. I would love to build out our content chops. It's going to be I think the thing I'm most excited for is what you said first, is like just being able to full-time do this. That would be amazing. And then two, navigating those balance problems. I know that sounds weird, but like I think that sounds like a lot of fun. It's like, okay, we have X amount of money, we have X amount of time. Where do we put it? Where do we invest our resources? I mean, it's exciting to kind of go. I don't know. I enjoy the journey of smelling out the opportunities, trying things out. Like 99% of the time, things failing, but finding the 1% thing that kind of worked and like going after this. It's a fun, exciting process. I really am most excited to like sleep consistently at least 6 hours.
That's a good one. I actually, on the content side, something I'm really excited about is, if we feel like we can, being more transparent about our game development for game 2, and potentially being able to like, stream doing development, for example, or like really just like talk to our community about stuff for the upcoming game way longer before it comes out. And granted, like the cycle for game 2 will hopefully be much shorter than game 1. Anthony and my hope is if we can work full time, we could even have it out in like a year or two max. So, like, in that sense, we would be able to share a lot more of the actual game development experience with our audience, which is something we haven't really been able to do, and we would love to if we could. So,
so much cool content possibilities.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I think that's the answer to.
I know, kind of general, question. Kind of vague, but like honestly, like we're so focused on getting to step 1. Which is getting there. That honestly, I have so many thoughts captured in so many documents about like, if this works, oh fuck, step 2 is going to be complicated. So
here's what we do. But it'll be great, and I'm so excited. I mean,
excited.
It's been like my dream my entire life to be able to work on a video game full time. So like, if we get
make
there,
his dream happen, Marcus.
Amazing. Yeah, it's up to Marcus. It's up to how well Marcus edits our gameplay trailers.
That's right.
Okay, thanks everyone. Where can people find us, Anthony? I forgot.
You can find us at koalaentertainment.com. There you have links to all our social media, especially, most importantly, our Discord. If you go to our social media anywhere and you click on our link tree, you're going to get a link also to our Gleam controller giveaway. One winner will get to choose their choice of PS5 controller, Joy-Cons, or Xbox It's the red one, Forge, some like red camouflage Xbox Series X controller. Very cool. You get to choose what you want if you win. We do giveaways like this all the time on Instagram, on Discord, on social media. We stream on Twitch. Get links to all that at koalataentertainment.com. We've been saying enjoy what it looks like for now, but it is literally my task to update that shit starting next week. So
probably in a couple weeks, it'll probably be different.
You have a nice new website.
Ooh.
So, yeah, enjoy that. Please wishlist our game Agora on Steam. If you are a Steam member, it helps so much if we can get to 5 to 10.
Do you know what we're at?
Wishlists. Not off the top of my head.
Not recently.
We're in the hundos.
Hell
We're in the
yeah.
hundos.
Nice.
Somewhere in the hundreds. Thank you guys for contributing. Everyone who's wishlisted so far really makes a big deal. If we can get to 5 to 10,000 before the game releases, that gives us a very good chance of getting on the front page and of Steam, which helps us so much more. It makes our ability to hit our sales goals so much more likely. So.
Yep. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the podcast. As always,
you can find a link to Agora, by the way, on our website.
Yes. So tune in next week. We'll have a regular podcast, right? But the following week, we have our boy Eduardo on, sound designer for indie games.
He's technically next week. He's technically next week.
Is he? What day is he?
The 8th. So, yeah, next week is going to be a funny schedule. Instead of Monday's podcast.
Oh, that's right.
It's a Friday podcast.
Yes. And then another podcast on the 12th, right?
11th.
On the 11th. So there's going to be a Friday and a Monday podcast. Eduardo, sound designer for games such as What Remains of Edith Finch, Gorogoa, many Annapurna titles, now the head of his own game studio, in talks with publishers right now to publish his game.
Worked on After Party, which I just recently read a really positive review on.
And then have we announced who's on the? Is that a secret still? The 11th?
No, we can reveal it. Beep, 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 beep,
if you stayed around till the end of this podcast, you get a big reveal here. Potentially our biggest guest ever.
On October 11th, Randy Pagulayan, Senior Director of Research for Gaming at Microsoft, will be on Quality Time.
That's right.
Oh, my goodness. Right.
So tune in next week.
Cool. If you thought the Celia podcast was awesome, you will love the one with Randy as well. He is...
if Randy doesn't recommend me a novel written by a socialist, then I won't be better, but it'll still be good.
Celia with that socialist novel recommendation. There's so much more content. Oh, there goes Skylar's mic. There's so much more Celia content coming out. If you missed that episode, we highly recommend you check out episode 87. It was super good. Or check out some clips that we posted on YouTube of it. Until next time, everybody.
Goodbye.
See you.
Bye.